The hospital had been closed for decades, but the rumors never died. Locals whispered about the deserted wing at the north end, the one where the lights flickered on their own, long after the electricity had been shut off. They said people who entered alone often didn't return the same, or didn't return at all. Doctors, nurses, and patients were long gone, but something lingered. Something that refused to leave. I first heard about it from an old janitor in the nearby town. He had worked here in the 70s, when the hospital was still operational. He told me about the wing no one dared enter, the corridor where footsteps echoed though no one walked there, where monitors would buzz, even when unplugged. "It's not the wind," he said, shaking his head. "It's them. They never left." Curiosity, or perhaps recklessness, drove me to see it for myself. On a gray, rainy evening, I arrived at the hospital's back entrance. The building loomed above me, massive and imposing, its brick walls streaked with decay and moss. Windows were shattered or boarded, some with curtains still fluttering inside, despite the years. The north wing was cordoned off with yellow tape, though it had long since torn in the wind. I pushed past it anyway. A gust of wind rattled the doors as I entered the lobby, my flashlight cutting through dust and shadows. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and rust. Old wheelchairs and hospital carts lay scattered, overturned, frozen in time. The main hall stretched before me, silent except for the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. The corridor to the deserted wing lay ahead. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the lights, flickering, one moment dim, the next blinding, even though the wiring had been long removed. The buzzing hum accompanied each flicker, an electrical hum that shouldn't exist. And then I heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible. "Help, please." I froze, scanning the hall. No one was there. The doors to the rooms were closed, peeling paint, some hanging crooked from rusted hinges. The whisper came again, a little louder. "Don't leave me." I forced myself forward, each step echoing loudly. Old patient rooms lined the hallway, beds still in place, sheets yellowed and tattered. Medical charts littered the floor, pages curling and stained with age. Machines were scattered around, monitors with cracked screens, for stands tipped over. The flickering lights cast long shadows that stretched unnaturally, sometimes forming shapes that seemed to move just beyond the corner of my eyes. In one room, I saw it, an old hospital bed, metal frame bent, sheets twisted as if someone had lain there recently. The monitor beside it buzzed to life for a second, a green pulse flashing across the screen, then died. My flashlight flickered, and in the corner, a shadow moved. I blinked, and it was gone. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever, the walls narrowing and widening as if alive. Each flicker of the lights revealed a figure standing at the far end, always just beyond my focus. Sometimes a nurse in old uniform. Sometimes a patient, thin, pale, staring at me with hollow eyes. Every time I moved, the figure vanished, only to reappear further down the hall. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, layering into a chorus of voices that no human could produce alone. "Stay, help, join us," each syllable sent shivers down my spine. The walls themselves seemed to vibrate with the sound, carrying it down the hallway, into my bones. I reached a room at the very end, the source of the strongest flickering light. The door was ajar. Inside, the air was colder, thick with a chill that burned my lungs. An old gurney sat in the center, sheets stained with time. The monitors hummed as if alive, and one screen lit up with a name, flickering, unknown patient. Then I saw it, movement. A hand, pale and translucent, reaching out from the bed. The whispering escalated into a cacophony of screams and pleading voices, echoing off the walls, reverberating in my skull. I stumbled back, heart hammering, flashlight shaking in my hands. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness for long, unbearable seconds. When they returned, I was no longer alone. Figures surrounded me, half-formed shadows of patients and staff, their faces twisted in silent screams, eyes hollow but staring. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. Their presence alone pressed against me, a weight impossible to ignore. I forced myself to move, backing toward the hallway. The flickering lights continued, each pulse revealing more figures. I could feel them brushing against me, whispering in my ear, calling my name, begging, pleading, warning. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. Every rational thought said the wing was deserted. But the wing wasn't empty. Not really. And it had been waiting for someone like me, a witness. Someone to see what had happened, what never left, what lingered in the flicker of the lights. The hallway seemed endless, a claustrophobic tunnel lined with peeling paint and broken doors. My flashlight flickered with the same erratic rhythm as the overhead lights, casting long, trembling shadows that danced across the walls. Every step I took echoed unnaturally, magnified by the emptiness of the wing. Yet, the faintest whisper persisted, growing clearer with each stride, "Don't leave, stay." I entered what had once been a patient room. The bed was still made, sheets yellowed and brittle with age, but there was an unmistakable impression. Someone had lain there recently. An ache formed in my stomach as I noticed the floor stand gently swaying, though the air was still. My flashlight trembled, illuminating the corner where a shadow shifted, crouched low, before vanishing completely when I blinked. The further I moved, the stronger the air felt, thick with unseen eyes watching me. Monitors buzzed sporadically, lights flaring to life for a split second, then plunging me back into darkness. On one, a faint name appeared, patient unknown. On another, the date of admission glared at me, decades ago. Some of the readings moved erratically, as though the machines were responding to a presence no human could see. I approached a nurse's station at the center of the wing. Files lay scattered, some open, pages curling and brittle. The names of patients, scribbled diagnoses, death records, every single one seemed normal at first. But then I noticed anomalies. Some records had no dates, some had blank spaces where notes should have been, and a few entries ended abruptly with a single word scrawled in panic: "Run." A sudden clatter made me jump. Metal carts slid across the floor on their own. Drawers opened and closed violently, spilling medical instruments across the hallway. A faint, cold breath grazed the back of my neck, carrying a whisper I could just make out: "Join us." I ran down the hall, adrenaline fueling my flight. The wing itself seemed to warp, corridors stretching impossibly, doors appearing where none should exist, rooms repeating in an endless loop. Every corner I turned, another shadow waited, figures of patients, nurses, and even doctors, all staring with empty eyes, their mouths moving in silent pleas. In one room, I saw a figure sitting in a wheelchair. At first, I thought it was a corpse, but the head turned slowly to face me. Eyes hollow, yet somehow burning, the mouth opening in a silent scream. Then it vanished entirely, leaving behind only the faint hum of flickering lights. I stumbled into the surgical theater at the end of the wing. The room was larger, the air thick with cold and the scent of antiseptic long decayed into rot. Instruments glinted faintly in the erratic light. Shadows clung to the corners, shifting and stretching unnaturally. One of the operating tables bore the imprint of a body, faded but undeniable. My heart pounded as I realized the air itself seemed alive, vibrating with whispered words that grew urgent, commanding, "Stay, help, the lights, never die." The lights overhead exploded in a rapid flicker, plunging the room into darkness. When they returned, figures had multiplied. They pressed closer, moving toward me silently but with intent. I tried to speak, but my voice faltered. My legs refused to obey as if the wing itself had taken hold, binding me in place. A sudden burst of static came from a nearby intercom, crackling to life despite the system being long decommissioned. A child's voice, high-pitched and trembling, echoed through the hall, "Don't leave, the wing wants you." I backed toward the exit, trying to ignore the shadows that now surrounded the hallway, whispering my name, recounting their last moments, their pain, their fear. Each step felt heavier, the walls pressing inward, the air thick with invisible hands. My flashlight flickered violently, revealing the most horrifying sight yet, hundreds of faces, twisted in eternal agony, staring at me from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. I reached the main corridor, hoping for an exit. The front door loomed faintly at the far end, just beyond the reach of the flickering light. But the shadows didn't retreat. They followed, layering over each other, multiplying with every step I took. Their whispers became a chorus, a relentless chant, "The wing keeps what it takes, the wing keeps what it takes." My breathing became ragged. I dared not look back, but I could feel their gaze, hundreds of hollow eyes boring into me. My flashlight fell to the ground and shattered, plunging me into darkness except for the sporadic flickers of the ceiling lights. Panic surged. I ran blindly, the wing warping, stretching, twisting. Doors that should have led outside looped back into rooms I had already passed. Then, at the far end of the hall, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, gaunt, wearing the uniform of a long-dead nurse. Her eyes glowed faintly, and her mouth moved as she whispered a single phrase that cut through the chaos. "You should have listened." The floor beneath me creaked and shivered, sending shards of plaster and debris clattering around. The walls trembled as if the wing itself were alive, breathing, reacting, waiting for me to falter. The chorus of voices surged again, a wall of sound, all merging into one demand: stay or join us. I forced myself forward, toward the only exit I could see. Each step felt like wading through water, each breath heavy, each heartbeat threatening to give out. The door was just ahead, the faint light from outside my only salvation. I stumbled, catching the frame, and hurled myself through it, crashing onto the cracked pavement outside. The hospital wing loomed behind me, silent again, the lights gone, the shadows seemingly absorbed back into its walls. I gasped for air, shaking, soaked with cold sweat. The whispers had ceased, replaced by the gentle rustle of wind through broken windows. But as I turned to leave, a faint flicker caught my eye, a single light in one of the windows, pulsing rhythmically, like a heartbeat. I knew, in that instant, that the wing hadn't released me. It had marked me. And no matter how far I ran, the memory of those flickering lights, the shadows, and the whispers would follow me forever. The moment I stepped back into the main corridor, I knew it wasn't over. The flickering lights had intensified, pulsing like the heartbeat of the wing itself. Shadows moved independently of their forms, stretching and writhing along the walls, pooling on the floor, pressing toward me with silent intent. The air was thick, almost liquid, and every breath I took burned my lungs. I tried to run, but the hallway stretched impossibly long. Doors that had once led to storage rooms now opened into empty wards, corridors looping into themselves. Each room I passed revealed figures frozen in the last moments of their lives, a doctor collapsing to the floor, a patient clutching a sheet, a nurse kneeling beside a bed. Their faces were twisted in fear and pain, eyes hollow yet seemingly aware of me. The whispering grew deafening, layered voices demanding, pleading, screaming, "Stay, don't leave, join us." I pressed myself against the wall, shaking, trying to block it out. But the wing wasn't just whispering anymore. It was speaking directly into my mind, searing commands through my thoughts, bending my will. I stumbled into the central hall, the largest room in the wing. The ceiling lights flickered violently, and the shadows coalesced into a single, massive figure. It was humanoid but grotesque, composed entirely of flickering darkness, stitched together from the forms of countless patients, nurses, and doctors trapped here. Its eyes glowed with a cold, white light, and when it moved, the shadows all along the walls and floor followed in rippling waves. A voice, no, multiple voices, spoke in unison, "The wing keeps what it takes," and you answered. I backed away, my mind screaming at me to flee. The floor beneath my feet shuddered and cracked. I could feel invisible hands gripping my ankles, tugging at me, trying to pull me back into the center of the room. My flashlight had shattered earlier, leaving only the flickering overhead lights and the unearthly glow of the shadowy figure to guide me. In desperation, I darted toward the stairwell at the end of the hall. Every step echoed like thunder, yet the shadows multiplied, filling the room, rising along the walls, following me relentlessly. Whispers turned to wails, voices screaming my name, recounting their final moments, their regrets, their endless suffering. I reached the stairwell and bolted up the stairs. The structure groaned beneath my weight, and the shadows climbed behind me, dripping like black liquid over the railing, crawling up the steps. The air grew colder with every level, frost forming on my clothes, my hair standing on end from the sheer unnatural chill. At the top, the final exit loomed, a heavy door that led to the roof. I pushed with every ounce of strength I had, yanking it open, and a gust of wind hit me, carrying the smell of rain, earth, and decay. I stumbled onto the rooftop, the night sky above me, and for a moment, relief washed over me. The wing seemed to pause, waiting. Then I heard it. One last whisper, carried in the wind, more insistent, closer than ever. "The wing remembers. It waits. You can't leave." I turned to look down the stairwell. The shadows were gone, the hallway empty. But in the windows below, I saw them, the silhouettes of the countless trapped souls, pressed against the glass, their hollow eyes fixed on me, mouths opening in silent screams. And for the first time, I realized, the wing wasn't just haunted. It was alive. It fed on attention, on fear, on the living who dared enter. The city lights in the distance felt impossibly far, but I had no choice. I leapt down to the adjacent building's roof, narrowly catching the edge, scraping hands bloody on the concrete. Behind me, the wind carried the chorus of whispers, fading but not gone, always there, always calling. I ran through the streets until the hospital was out of sight, swallowed by darkness and mist. My chest burned, legs ached, and every step was haunted by the memory of the shadows pressing close. Even now, as I write this, I hear faint flickers of light and whispers in the silence, carried by the wind or perhaps my imagination. I learned something that night: some places never truly die. Some wings never truly empty. And some voices never stop calling. The hospital wing had let me escape, yes. But it marked me, etched its presence into my mind. I would carry the echo of flickering lights and pleading voices with me, wherever I went. And I know, deep down, that it waits for the next curious soul, the next witness foolish enough to answer its call. So if you ever find yourself near an abandoned hospital, especially at night, and you see the lights flicker, don't go in. Don't answer. And whatever you do, don't let your curiosity guide you toward the deserted wing. Because once it calls, it never lets go. If this story gave you chills, like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales from abandoned places, haunted buildings, and forgotten corners of the world, where the lights never stop flickering, and the voices never stop calling.